Hey everyone, welcome back for some more Warframe. In this episode, we're going to have a special Excalibur theme because he's actually been revamped in the latest update on the PC. He lost some of his old abilities, gained some new ones, and he's a whole lot better than he's ever been before. And to celebrate this special episode, Excalibur's wearing some of his proto armor, which is available for a limited time, so make sure you get it while it lasts. Now, before we get to the new stuff, let's look at his old abilities. Slash Dash, Excalibur dashes forward, slashing any who get in his way. Radial Blind emits a bright flash of light, blinding all enemies in a small radius for several seconds. Super Jump, Excalibur launches into the air, jumping 3 times higher than normal. And finally, his ultimate is Radial Javelin. Launches javelins towards enemies, dealing high damage and impaling them to walls. So just for memory's sake, let's go take a look at how these performed in action. Slash Dash has been a classic ability ever since the beginning of the series. Excalibur basically lunges forward, and anybody who gets in his way gets damaged. And it's also his first ability, so he can launch it as much as he wants to, essentially, if you have him modded properly. Radial Blind has always been his truly best ability. He can blind all enemies within range, and then they basically become vulnerable. They can just be absolutely annihilated like so. This could also be launched pretty often too. Most people actually built their Excaliburs around a Radial Blind build. And as you can see, it is very effective, even against high-level enemies. Oh yes, Super Jump. Considered by most to be his most useless ability, it is pretty decent for mobility purposes, especially if you combine it with Slash Dash, of course. And you could also use it to jump in there and slam down for enemies. But it was always decent for mobility purposes. Not great, but, you know. Radial Javelin was his ultimate ability, and it was great for some crowd control purposes. Alright, so enough reminiscing on the past, let's see exactly how he's changed for the future. So how much did he change, really? I mean, it is pretty significant. They got rid of Super Jump completely, which isn't surprising. And they bumped Radial Javelin, his previous ultimate, right down to its same spot. They gave us a whole new ultimate ability, which is a whole lot better. Makes Excalibur a whole lot more fun to play as, and he's a whole lot more lethal. They also actually altered Slash Dash, which we'll see in a bit. And Radial Blind even changed a little bit too, and we're going to see that as well. Anyways, let's read the new description. Slash Dash. Dash between enemies while slashing with the exalted blade. And Radial Blind emits a bright flash of light, blinding all enemies in a small radius for several seconds. Radial Javelin launches javelins towards enemies, dealing high damage and impaling them to walls. And then Exalted Blade, summon a sword of pure light and immense power. Alright, let's take a look at these in action. And first up, of course, is Slash Dash. It doesn't really lunge forward as much, but you can chain enemies together and basically create combos. Sometimes it won't work like so, but most of the time it does. And you can even just do single enemies like this. Very simple. But basically you just keep aiming at enemies after you launch it, and it will keep chaining them together. You can even do more than 2 like so. We just got 3 here. And another 2 for good measure. Radial Blind does work pretty similar to the way it used to. However, now when an enemy is blind, you can perform a stealth kill on them pretty easily. And I tested this numerous times without this update, and it did not seem to work, so it appears they did change it in the update. I don't see any real practical use to doing it. I mean, it kind of leaves them vulnerable, so it's kind of pointless. And I don't see Excalibur turning into a stealth Warframe anytime soon, but it's cool nevertheless. And Radial Javelin, it's no longer his ultimate ability, but it can still do some devastating damage to multiple enemies. It can help with crowd control purposes. And it's not the best ability, but it is pretty nice for sure. And now for Excalibur's best ability by far, this is his new ultimate ability, Exalted Blade. Basically, he takes out a new sword, and you can keep slicing in any direction, and he'll keep launching long-distance attacks. This allows him to attack from a distance, and you'll look in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you can actually see it's not necessarily the same as most abilities. It's kind of like Chroma's abilities, actually, in the sense that it will continue draining your energy over time instead of just draining it all at once in one foul swoop. So you can basically kill enemies on any level. You don't have to be up there next to them like you normally would. And it's pretty awesome. It's great to see that Excalibur's finally a whole lot more useful to any team. I mean, he's always been kind of like the jack of all trades of all the Warframes, if you will. Like, he's kind of partially a tank, he's partially a support role with Radial Blind, but he's never really been truly great in any regard. I mean, yeah, an argument could be made for Radial Blind for sure, but if he didn't have that ability, pretty much no team would ever want to have him on there because he's useless otherwise. In fact, the only reason you would mostly see anybody playing as him is the fact that he's one of the starting Warframes. Now, I could be wrong because I haven't been playing this game since it first came out, but to my knowledge, this is the first time a Warframe has ever had their abilities revamped to this level before. I mean, yeah, there have been some buffs and debuffs to some stats and whatnot, but I don't think it's ever been to this extent before. Now, he'll always have a special place in my heart because he was, of course, the first Warframe in the series, the first one to introduce me to the game, and the only one, in fact, to appear in the first 11 episodes, I believe. So it's nice to see the developers have finally given him some love and made him a true force to be reckoned with now. It looks like they've even changed his stats as well. This is my level 30 Excalibur before the update. He has 65 armor, 300 health, 150 power, and 300 shield. He, of course, is going to have naturally more than my PC version Warframe, who's only level 13, but just keep those stats in mind and we'll switch over to see how they've changed. Now, it's going to be hard to really truly compare them until he reaches level 30, but even for level 13, the stats are pretty close. The one that really stands out, though, is the armor. It went from 65 at level 30 before the update, up to 225 at level 13 after it, so he's going to be a lot better at being a tank for sure. And I believe the last three stats, the health, power, and shield, will very likely be a lot closer by the time he gets to max level. So he is going to be a whole lot better now, for sure. Anyways, thanks so much for watching as always, everyone. I do hope you enjoyed, and remember to leave a like. Every like does help me out a lot and lets me know you want to see this series continue in the future. Also, if you're new around here, click subscribe, and you'll be able to join Seeky Nation. That way you don't have to miss any more videos in the future. And I will see you next time. One final super jump!